Welcome to the Strangecast, a podcast made by strangers for strangers. I'm Ryan.
I'm Kalis.
I'm Nicole.
We're the motherfucking Strangecast.
Oh.
Motherfuckers.
And that was our intro.
This real piece of shit. We were having a contest and nobody entered, so fuck it.
Yeah, it's true. And I even cut it back down to we have the 45-second version, and we have like the 3-second version. And we don't even use the 45-second version anymore. But that's all right.
You know what? Fuck everybody that's a musician listening to our podcast and not remixing this thing already.
You selfish, talented assholes.
Yeah. How can you be so selfish? Ideas belong to everyone. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about news. And then Nicole's going to talk about...
Okay.
I gotta say it, right?
News.
Strange news.
No,
Odd news. We're going to go through a bunch of shit. And we're going to end it on a story that I think is so the Strangecast, and it ties a lot of episodes together, kind of like the rug in The Big Lebowski. Kalis is, he has a humidifier in his room. We'll have to, we'll get rid
because of my asthma.
But first things first. What's going on with you guys? Kalis, I heard you guys got a little bit of a storm. Oh.
Yeah, it was nothing. Seriously. No snow on the ground, nothing. I don't know if you guys have... I was not aware that it's like a mini controversy about Michelle Obama being on the Oscars or something. I didn't watch the Oscars, but... There were people debating about this on my Facebook feed, and it went on for quite a while. It got into quite a discussion.
What are some of the highlights? I'm just curious about what the whole debacle could be about Michelle Obama. By the way, she's really attractive. I never noticed.
She is probably the most attractive first lady we've ever had, hands down.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could top her.
Her and Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe is not a first lady.
She's kind of the first mistress.
If we're gonna name all the women that presidents have been inside of, I mean, I don't know that Michelle Obama would be that high up there, but anyway, but no, like what a lot of people were saying was that I guess the most common theme in the argument against him was how liberal Hollywood and liberal Washington are kind of rubbing elbows, or that was the term used, and I kind of disagreed. I mean, I made the point to say that Ronald Reagan and Arnold Schwarzenegger were two Republican politicians that had both originally been actors. And then, of course, Clint Eastwood spoke at the RNC last year. There definitely are not that many conservative people in Hollywood, but if liberal Washington is that close to liberal Hollywood, then conservative Washington's in bed with fucking... Well, I would say that they're in bed with more like corporate America.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
That's a good 2 cents.
That was my thought about it. That's what I contributed to it. But, they got kind of a lot of people were getting really carried away with their defending their side and whatnot. So it kind of got out of hand pretty quick. But
on a related note, I love Facebook's new feature to unsubscribe from a thread.
Oh, yeah. Unfollow posts.
Unfollow posts. It's like my number one go-to thing I click on Facebook now.
I wish I didn't use Facebook that much. I missed when I didn't have one.
You're in it.
I got to get out again. I'm thinking about deleting it.
I'm deleting it when I'm 30.
How old are you?
29.
Sorry that I need to ask that.
29 and a half, actually, But
wow, you're getting close.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do it. I think you'll keep it.
I'm 29 in 6 weeks.
Ooh.
You guys are old.
Maybe you're just young.
Yeah, I think you're just young.
I'm at a pretty good age. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 24, but I'm halfway there. I'll be where you're at pretty soon.
Speaking of things that you say in Texas, do you know the other day someone at work was talking about a relatively large woman and sleeping with her, and I was like, "Oh, you wouldn't kick her out of bed for eating crackers, right?" And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "I don't know."
No, that's hilarious, dude.
Yeah, and I said it so like once I said it, I was like, "Did I just say that?" 'Cause I said it like I knew what I was talking about. Like I wasn't like, "Oh, this is a perfect opportunity to use that quote."
And see, to me, that doesn't sound like a Texas thing. Like that sounds like a Boston guy kind of thing. Like, hey, I wouldn't kick out of bed for eating crackers. Like that kind of, you know.
Yeah.
There's another Texas one, Rinkadink. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, we had an episode on Rinky Dink.
We talked about Rinkadink. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in season 1 though. No one listened to season 1.
I don't think there was any others. I mean, there's probably that we say y'all, howdy.
I say y'all though.
You say y'all?
Yeah, it's easier.
Yeah. Hey y'all.
But okay, you guys want to get to the news?
Yes.
10. I have 10 stories.
Oh, by the way, I heard the news. A segue? I hadn't heard it yet. I wanted to say that was pretty good.
Segue. And you were like,
Segue.
And you were like, Segue. All right.
I was probably drinking.
And now it's time for the news. And that's our news intro. This first story comes from Grand Forks, North Dakota. North Dakota has suspended men's basketball play-by-play radio announcer Paul Ralston for 2 games after he used the phrase choke job following an overtime loss in northern Arizona. So basically this guy, there was a game was really close. They ended up losing, and I guess he said it more than once now. He keeps calling it a choke job. And like, you got to stop saying that.
Weird.
Yeah, especially like I guess you can take it sexually, but
how much for a choke job?
No, it is, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Nicole, have you ever heard of the guy on like I think it's CNN or maybe it's Fox, and he's like, who sings Jenny from the Block?
I don't know.
J-Lo. It's gotta be Jennifer Lopez.
Lopez?
Yeah. And he's like, they're the community, because she's like, I'm just Jenny from the Block, and so her block is like outraged, and he's like, more likely to give her a curb job than a blow job, than a block party.
Whoa.
Yeah, and he's like, then a block party. I'm sorry about that, but it'll never happen again.
Oh my god.
But this guy's saying choke job.
Wow.
Would a choke job I mean, you want to define what that is? Because I think it would be when you're getting head, but you're choking the girl at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like deep throating.
Oh, I was thinking like a choke job, like where you've got a really tight grip.
Ah.
That's what I thought. I was like, you don't just want a blow job, you want a choke job. I got it.
So it's a blowjob with a tight grip.
Yeah.
That's a choke job. Okay, so it's sexual for both of you guys, but we all know the way he's trying to use it, right?
I would assume.
You know when someone chokes in a game?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's...
Okay, so that's a...
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know.
You guys didn't get that?
No, I honestly didn't know what he was trying to say. I'm like, okay. Like, I get that he didn't mean it sexually, but like, what the fuck was he thinking?
No, like in 2004, the Yankees choked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of an old-fashioned thing. Nobody really says that anymore.
I think it's said all the time, more often than you think, but I don't think it's ever called a choke job, and that's where I think the controversy starts, where you're like, you could say they choked, but you can't say they had a choke job. It's just
a very, very similar thing. One night I was watching Monday Night Football this past season, and I think it was kind of rainy, and so every punt was what they kept saying, muffed. And it was like every punt, they're like, oh yeah, that punt was muffed. And I'm like, what is this, muff night football? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's
Why do they
awesome.
keep, like, I didn't even know that muff was a verb. Like, all I think of is something sexual. And I think they were loving the fact that it was so sexual sounding, so they just kept using it. They're like, oh, another muff punt. I'm like, huh. Really? Like every single punt, they're like, oh, that one was muffed too.
Well, speaking of muffing things, segue.
Way.
Recently, there was in Germany, a meteor hit Earth. Well, it didn't hit Earth because then it'd be a meteorite. But you guys all saw the videos of the meteor in Germany?
I saw the one in Russia.
You're right. It was a Russian meteor, but this is a German story.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So in Russia, now Kalis, have you seen these?
I've seen just a few of the videos.
Okay, so in Russia, there's like a huge problem with insurance fraud and getting hit by cars and collecting insurance. So in Russia, everyone has a dash cam in their car.
Oh yeah.
So when this meteor hit, it was like everyone had a camera to
Yeah, it
record
was
this thing.
incidentally recorded. Sure.
Right. The problem is that they're in cars, and cars, if you're in your car, it's typically not just silent, you're listening to music. Well, Germany has like these really, really strict music laws, and Germany did not see any of these videos because of the music playing in the background of most of the Russian dash cams.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
I'm surprised their laws are so strict. I thought European laws on things like that were pretty lax.
Well, I guess in America we have a Fair Use Provision Act, and I don't know really what it entails, but I would assume if there's music playing in the background that it's incidental that you recorded the music given what you were trying to record. And so you can't really sue someone because your song was playing in the background of something that was being recorded somewhere else, which makes sense. But that's just also a guess. I don't really know what the Fair Use Provision actually is. But in Germany, there's really there's no Fair Use Provision Act. And like Sony or whatever major corporation out there, Gemma, I guess it's called, wants like quarters of a cent for every view on YouTube of these Russian videos.
Oh my god.
Wow.
That's pretty nuts.
Germany tends to be very bureaucratic with that kind of thing.
Yeah, Germany does tend to be very bureaucratic, don't they?
I was gonna say I thought it was interesting that you brought up that all the cars have cameras on the dashboard because I've actually seen a video of that happening of somebody. Both cars were stopped. He stopped just in time not to hit the car in front of him, and the car in front of him backed up and hit his car. And then the people in the car in front got out and they were acting like he had hit their car, like he had rear-ended them. And he just kept pointing at the camera. He's like, I assume what he was saying was, we're all German, I don't have cameras, dumbass.
Russia.
But, Russia? I thought you said it was Germany.
Russia has the dash cams. Germany has the music law.
Well, wherever they are,
Yeah.
wherever they were, that happened. I just thought that was interesting. I didn't know what that video had been about before then.
Yeah, so it's very common practice in Russia to have, I guess in like Eastern Europe, to have dash cams. In fact, because that happened, I looked into buying one. They're like really cheap on Amazon. They're not very good quality, but they're very cheap.
Wow. Where does it get uploaded to? Where does the information get uploaded to?
I think it gets up like you put in a SD card or like an external not drive, but like an external.
So you can view it yourself later.
Memory. Yeah. Well, then you get like 32 gigs on whatever card you have in there, and then you have to review it or delete it, and then you could just use the same one. Because I thought the same thing when I was looking into one. I'm like, well, what do I have to hook up here? Do I need Wi-Fi? What's the deal? Or does it just record and then I get hit and I hit stop and does it just retain the last 60 seconds? I don't know, But yeah. That's pretty interesting that like something so human affects humanity in general, A meteor hitting Earth knows no culture,
Right.
But Germany didn't really get a chance to view it at all because they're like, you can't watch it because there's music in the background. And you're like, but this is how like the dinosaurs died. Like, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah. Those images and those videos of that meteorite hitting the Earth was pretty amazing because, first of all, it explodes.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen the video, you got to go watch it. It explodes when it hits the atmosphere. And it actually becomes a much smaller meteorite that was, previously very large. And then our atmosphere, damaged it enough so that when it hit the Earth, it actually, didn't do as much damage as it could have.
Yeah, and it still did pretty a good amount of damage.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize is the amount of damage something can do if it hits Earth.
I think we all saw Deep Impact.
Yeah, but what was that? That was like miles and miles huge. This also coincided with the meteor that entered our atmosphere also coincided with the largest asteroid that passed by Earth within like miles,
It
and
did.
it didn't hit
Yeah.
us, and then something else hit us like a day later, and NASA's like they were unrelated. It's really hard to defend that given the statistics behind like meteors that size and something that passes by Earth that large and that close. They're like, oh, they were unrelated, and you're like, were they though? Were they really? And they're like, no, yeah, it was just a coincidence. And you're like, that's a fucking huge coincidence, though.
Yeah. I think the difference being asteroids come from somewhere else, meteors come from within our own solar system, and meteorites are actually the things that hit Earth.
Yeah.
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 So I know that I had science class in school, but I think they started cutting back on that after I graduated high school. Apparently, people don't pay attention or didn't learn these things in school. I feel like I always am repeating things that I've heard in school when news like this comes up, and it's like, Jesus Christ, am I the only one that ever paid attention in school? Like, I hate it when I have to talk to people about their diets. Like, oh yeah, I'm on this great diet. I eat no carbohydrates, only protein. It's like, yeah, well, that's why you're going to crash on that diet, because you actually need carbohydrates to help burn energy. You need the carbohydrates to help burn the protein. Like, you have to have fats, carbohydrates, and protein. It's a healthy balance.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the difference between a nutritional diet and a crash diet. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I don't know, like it just seemed like really basic shit that should be taught in high school, and nobody that I know seems to understand how nutrition works.
I knew a girl in school recently, from my recent stint in school, who thought the moon, I swear to God this is a true story.
Oh, I remember you telling us about this.
She thought the moon was the dark side of the sun.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that.
Where do you learn and or get an idea like that? When I was like, what? And then I said, why isn't Pluto a planet anymore? And she said, because it blew up. And I said, it blew up?
So she's just making shit up.
No, she's not making it up. She thinks this isn't, I guess, yeah, kind of, but she also is not being funny. She's literally believes this. So I'm like, it blew up? And she's like, yeah, it's like, isn't it like a gas planet? And then like all you have to do is light a match near it and it blows up. And I'm like, because that's what happened. Like,
yeah.
There goes Voyager just passing Pluto. It sparks. Someone left the pilot light on.
And it blew a whole planet
up. Fucking blew up. Yeah. Why isn't Pluto a planet? It blew up.
Those are the people that, you know, you're like, everyone likes to screw around once in a while in class, but eventually you kind of all get to it and just do your work and sit quietly, or you know, to ask questions to the teacher. But like, there's always like one or two people in every single class in your entire life who just sit there and pass notes. They don't do any of their work. They're not paying attention. They're disruptive, and they're like that for the rest of their lives. And when you talk to them, that's what they sound like.
Yeah.
They sound like fucking idiots.
It's ridiculous. And then you go, well, does that mean the sun revolves around Earth? How do you work something like that? Did you ever think about it? Ever? You know? Okay. Well, you would think people like that don't know anything are in their hundreds. Like this 101-year-old from Hong Kong. Oh. Segue. I'll read the first paragraph and then a mix of the rest of the story. Hong Kong, February 25th. A 101-year-old man who has been in 9 marathons since taking up distance running when he was 89 said he retired after a weekend race in Hong Kong. So Fuja Singh, whose running and style of dress earned him the title Turbaned Tornado. Let me read that again. Whose running and style of dress earned him the title Turbaned Tornado.
Okay.
Makes you wonder what the fuck he's wearing. Said Sunday's 6.2-mile race was his final competitive run. They asked him why he said, I guess in that race he shaved 4 minutes off his time from last year, so he did better. And they said, how did you do it? And he said, it's just, I'm really happy. I'm really happy when I do these things. And they said, why did you even get into it in the first place? And he said, it's because of the happiness I get out of it. If something makes you happy, you'll do it well. Now, If this makes him so goddamn happy at 101, why would he fucking stop? It doesn't say.
I don't understand why that would bring you happiness. That doesn't sound. I
Well,
don't know.
I think a lot of runners find the adrenaline rush or the amount of serotonin it goes off in your head thrilling, and so they like running because of that, you know?
But that's kind of the same thing. If you're just chasing a high and it's not actually developing.
Literally chasing a high.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. If you're just chasing a high, that doesn't sound like you're actually developing any part of yourself or discovering who you are. You're just like a junkie.
Yeah.
Like if you're running long distance because you like the journey and you meet new people and blah blah blah, cool. But like if you're just running just to run and
But Nicole, don't we do anything we do in life? Isn't that the pursuit of happiness? And isn't that a high for anyone that does anything?
no, we're talking about a singular activity that defines you as a person. That's kind of weird.
Everything I do does not get me high. Very few things get me high.
I know at least one thing.
Me too. But there are other things. I have passions, but
Right, yeah, and not any one single thing that you're passionate about defines you as a person. This guy's whole being is defined by running.
right.
It's crazy, in my opinion.
He said, 5 or 6 kilometers into the race, I really decided to go for it. I had lots of power today because I was very happy. He's happy, but but the question really is, I get what you're saying. He's a happiness junkie or a adrenaline junkie, but if this is something that makes you that happy, why are you quitting?
He probably won't quit.
Yeah, you're right. He probably won't. But then
Well-
again, he's 101 years old. I mean, if anything, he's doing himself a favor.
I can't imagine it's good for his body.
Dead next year. No, it's got to be. Any activity at 101? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, good call.
I mean, walking is just better for you than running. Running's tearing things up all the time.
He's not wrong.
Let's go back to Turbaned Tornado, though, whose running and style of dress earned him the title Turbaned Tornado. So he must wear a turban, right? Do they wear turbans in Hong Kong? No.
He might be a Sikh.
Do they have those in Hong Kong?
Yeah, they're all over the world.
I mean, what if he does wear a turban? I mean,
No, it doesn't matter. It's just weird that they're like.
no. I mean, what I'm saying is, well, why couldn't he be wearing a turban? What if he's just a guy in Hong Kong that wears a turban?
What if he wears a turban that covers his whole face and it's not actually him racing? And he's
Oh,
yeah, and it's like his kid. Oh no, I think it said he. Hold on, let me go back to the story. He moved from India. Oh, he moved from India to Britain following the death of his son, and began running marathons in 2000. Yeah, I guess when you hit 101, you watch all your kids die. That sucks if you have kids. Anyway, speaking of traveling, segue.
Anyway,
Long lines. This is just the title. Long lines lead to rise of wheelchair miracles. What do you think that title means?
people are getting out of their wheelchairs.
exactly.
People are getting on their wheelchairs?
Is this from The Onion? That sounds like an Onion.
No,
Yeah.
this is from the Wall Street Journal, and it's from Los Angeles, LA.
Is it misleading? Is it not what we think it is?
It is misleading. So it happens regularly. This is what it says. This is the first paragraph. It happens regularly, airport officials say. A traveler requests a wheelchair, gets pushed to the front of security line and screened, and then jumps out of the chair and rushes off into the terminal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that fucking. So people are going to the airport and they're like, "Fuck this line! I need a wheelchair. I'm disabled." They get to push to the front. They go through security and they're like, "Oh my god, it's a miracle." I think I read that it's also up 18% or something like that from last year. I mean, you think you'd have to go through more security because you have a wheelchair? Like you might get pushed to the front, but that doesn't mean you go through it any faster. You probably go through it slower.
No, you go through faster because you're beating all those people.
Oh, here's a little graph that comes with it. Top airports and total distance traveled by all methods, including trains, buses, moving sidewalks, and walking, from the main entrance of the terminal to the furthest gate. Beijing capital. 1.9 miles you have to walk just to get to your fucking plane. That's nuts.
You know what? I think that's pretty close to Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson.
That's the second most. That's
Yeah.
literally right under it, 1.3.
I've had to go to terminal. I think the last one is E or F. I've had to do it, and it fucking sucks. My mom came in from Hawaii. She didn't realize because the airport in Hawaii is very small. Well, not very small, but it's an international airport. But
They
it's
don't really
small.
have a lot of space in Hawaii to make a huge airport, right?
Right. Well, it's an international airport, and planes have to stop there when going to Asia. So, but anyway, it's smaller than Atlanta, and she didn't realize that there was a train. She walked the entire airport to get to baggage claim.
That's
And
nuts.
yeah, and I knew she must have been walking slow or she got lost or something, so I'm standing there waiting for her. And she finally gets there and she's literally panting. She's got like a foam ring around her mouth, and apparently she tried to run like halfway and then finally gave up and walked. And I'm like, "What happened? Did the train break down or something?" She's like, "What train?" Like, there's a train that takes you from the terminal that you got off on all the way here. And she's like, "I didn't know." She starts screaming hysterically. She's like, "Why didn't it?" She turns around and looks at all the people who are getting off the train. "Why didn't any of you people stop me?"
You know who it's not far for?
People pretending to be in wheelchairs.
Nope. Well, that too, yeah, I guess. But that 101-year-old,
Yeah, that would have been like a short sprint.
that's nothing for him. He's like, Beijing? Fuck Beijing. I can own that. And shave 4 minutes off it next year. Beijing, Atlanta, Zurich, Seoul, Hong Kong, Madrid, London Heathrow. London Heathrow, Miami. So yeah, avoid those places. Okay, next story. Hold on, let me see if I could segue. Speaking of not standing still, segue. Portland, Maine, February 25th. A Maine man whose whistling led to a disorderly conduct charge agreed in court to pursue his musical passion only while on the move. So apparently this guy loves whistling, but everyone else hates his whistling. So they called the cops on him, and he got disorderly conduct for it. So in order to fight the charges, he said, "Fine, I'll only whistle when I'm walking." Portland, Maine city officials said they received multiple complaints from residents and businesses about Robert Smith. Jesus, talk about a fucking like common name. 32, whistling loudly outside. The complaints rustled in a disorderly conduct charge, the Portland Press Herald reported Monday. A Portland city ordinance lists whistling as disorderly behavior, which can carry up to a $500 fine. The case was resolved when Smith promised prosecutors he would only whistle while walking, not while standing in one place. And then he said, "It came from God. That's where it came from. God is showing me what I'm doing is okay. He shows me every day with laughter." I don't know what that means, but
I don't understand anything that was said. Like, why can't they whistle?
because it's disorderly behavior.
Oh.
This guy sounds like he's just like he sounded like he was kind of, I don't know, not rapping. He was saying something like he was just getting. It was just a funny phrase to spit out.
It came from God. That's where it came from. God is showing me what I'm doing is okay.
That could be a song.
He shows me every day with laughter. Well, what does laughter have to do with whistling, though?
Whistling is his laughter. It's just like that other guy with running.
Yeah.
This guy just loves to whistle, man. He whistles up a storm.
Speaking of divine intervention, segue. Brownsville, Tennessee. 7 people were inside a 100-year-old house on Windrow Road in Brownsville when a fire broke out. The family inside made it out alive thanks to a 6-year-old boy. It was 4 a.m., and what do you think the 6-year-old boy was doing at 4 a.m.? Kalis?
Masturbating.
Nope. Playing Xbox.
All right.
Yeah. And because he was playing Xbox, he saw the fire and told everyone to get out. And so they're pretty much thanking Xbox.
Set the house on fire.
And their poor parenting.
Yeah. Well, I doubt they knew he was up at 4 playing Xbox. But what's interesting, this is like one of my biggest fears, is the house burning down. I saw it on like an episode of Different Strokes, like back when I was a kid, and their house like burned down, and it scared the ever-living shit out of me. So apparently this kid said it started in the attic and came down the chimney, which I don't know why it would come down the chimney, but he came in there and said he was screaming, "Papa, Papa, the house is on fire." And you know what Paula Brown, his grandmother, said?
What?
We don't need no water, let the motherfucker burn.
Oh, wow.
No, what's interesting though, yeah, no, she didn't actually say that.
Oh, okay. I thought you were being like, I thought that was a direct quote.
No, Mike Brown, I'm assuming the grandfather, said it happened so quick, 7 minutes, maybe 10 at the most. It was all done. They lost everything we own. That's that terrifies the shit out of me that you can lose everything in a matter of 7 to 10 minutes.
That's what house insurance is for, man.
That's not. It's not about house insurance. It's about what. You know how much shit I have in my house that like
Well, I mean,
you
you
lose all
know,
your pictures. You lose anything that like linked you to your childhood. I mean, grant if you lose your childhood house, you know.
I
Yeah.
guess I would be. I mean, I have a lot of things that I'm. I I guess the big. I have a lot of video games and things like that. Those are things I've spent a lot of money on. I think. I mean, it would be really shitty if something happened to my all the things I've spent money on, but I don't know. I feel like I'd be able to get over it pretty
I
easily.
don't know, man. That's like one of the most devastating things that can probably happen to you in your life. I don't know anyone whose house burnt down and oh, I think I did, but doesn't matter. I don't really,
I
I don't
would
know.
be more devastated if I was able, because I think I'd be able to get out of the house, and if I would be more devastated if I like left my dog inside or like left a family member inside. Like I
Well,
would.
yeah. I mean,
Well, I mean,
that's
of course, with a family member, but like if I left my dog inside, I mean, I'd give a shit about any of the other stuff. I would grab her before anything else. I mean, other than making sure my family was out.
what's the one thing you would grab other than a family member or a dog? What's the one material object you would grab if your house is burning down and the firefighters are like, I don't know, you probably have the opportunity to go back and save one thing.
That's a good question. I honestly don't know.
I really don't have anything that I would care enough to risk going into a burning building for.
Okay, so
If you're on your way out, if
yeah,
you're just on
yeah.
your way
So
out,
it's hypothetical. What would
you're
Oh,
what thing?
yeah, no, even then, like if I have pants on, then whatever. I don't care.
but I mean, like even like let's say you have like a top drawer where you have like all your important documents. You know what I mean?
The
Your
pictures or something.
social security card, your uh, yeah, your
Yeah,
previous marriage license, whatever.
I don't know. I have my accordion, my little accordion file thing that has all that stuff in it. I don't think I would think to grab it. Like all that's pretty replaceable, and I don't have any pictures from my childhood, and I don't have anything from my childhood here with me.
Right.
So
No, I get that. Your childhood house, though, it's got to be devastating to lose. Your childhood home that has everything in it.
you're adding a lot of like hypothetical into
It's
this.
one hypothetical question. If your childhood home was burning,
Oh, you didn't say that. You said your house,
I mean,
my
if
house.
when I was in college and I had an apartment, if that shit burned down, I wouldn't give a crap because there's nothing in there that I actually care about. But if my childhood home burnt down, that you lose everything that connects you to
Well,
your
here's what
childhood.
I'm saying. I've lived on my own for the past 10 and a half years. All that stuff, I've been separated from it and I haven't thought about it much. So I don't, even if my childhood house burned down, I wouldn't care. Like I don't know. There's nothing material that I care enough about to be like, oh fuck, I gotta get that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our baby pictures, my brother was born 10 years before me, so his pictures are even older. Haha. And my mother didn't take very good care of them, so they're all deteriorated anyway. And they're not really worth much to even save at this point because the acids from people's fingers have literally melted the photographs to almost nothing. So even those I wouldn't care about. I'd just be like, whatever.
Have you ever seen a house burned down or an apartment,
No, not in person.
Kaylis?
Seen a house burn
Or an
down?
apartment or anything burned down?
I can't say that I have. I really can't.
When I lived in Boston, I lived on Mission Hill and I saw 3 or 4 apartments burn down. And like I said, I never met anyone that lost like their childhood home in a fire, but I've certainly seen like 3 or 4 apartments burn down. And the guys whose apartment burned down, they lived on the 3rd floor, and that's the only thing that burned, but that screws the 2nd floor because of the water damage. So when the firefighters are putting out the 3rd floor fire, the second apartment, the 2nd floor floods, and you pretty much, even if you weren't touched by the fire, you lose everything in the 2nd floor too. But the guys on the 3rd floor, when they realized their house is on fire, grabbed beer, sat across the street, and just drank while they watched their apartment burn down.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I watched another one that started from an air conditioner,
Ooh.
and that was interesting. And you can't do anything about it. You're just so helpless because you're like, I can't even. What are you gonna do? Spit on it? It's not gonna help. You know, it's like you're done. Anyway, thank God for Xbox, right?
Definitely.
Oh my God! Speaking of a house on fire, segue. Kansas lottery winners accidentally blow up house while celebrating with meth. Authority.
Oh, meth.
Authorities say two brothers accidentally blew up their house after celebrating a $75,000 winning lottery ticket by purchasing marijuana and meth. Wichita Police Sergeant Bruce Watts says one of the brothers was taken to the hospital, the other one was injured. They're fine. Apparently, one of them went to go get a bong and butane torches. One of the butane torches leaked, and it blew up the house. That's nuts.
Awesome.
First of all, they celebrated a $75,000 winning lottery ticket, though. When I hear like winning lottery ticket, I think millions. You know what I mean? Like, if I were to
75,000 is not bad.
yeah, but if I were to say to you guys like, oh, I can't record tonight, and you guys are like, why? And I'm like, I won the lottery. You guys would be like, wow, that's crazy. How much did you win? And I'd say 75,000. You guys would be like, oh yeah, that's you still can't record really? Like there's nothing. It's 75,000. That doesn't make a dent in my debt. First of all, you know.
Oh, well, that's because you got one of those fancy degrees
Yeah.
with a fancy job.
Well, I also have two of them.
Oh, you have two. La-di-da.
Mm.
I don't know. 75,000 means something to me and Kalis. Why don't you fucking stop being a Debbie Downer?
It's just more of the
Ryan, you are the 1%.
I shit $75,000 a day and I flush it down the toilet.
See, it's people like you that make America suck.
Yeah, it is people like me, isn't it?
It
But
is.
that's not really the point is though that when someone says they won the lottery and they say to me that I'm like, ooh, Kansas lottery winners accidentally blow up house. Well, don't worry about it because you could buy another house. And it's like $75,000. I was like, you are homeless even though you won. There's nothing you can do, and you're in jail.
Yeah.
Speaking of meth, not again. Bus carrying passengers from Nightmare Cruise breaks down on way to New Orleans. Now, Kalis, you're probably more close to this than we are. I guess there was a Carnival cruise?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I knew more about this. I've heard about this several times on NPR. There was a Carnival cruise, supposed to be like a 4-day trip to somewhere, and they ran out of power, and so
their engine caught fire. Yeah.
Engine caught fire. Something that yeah. So
and they took on a little bit of water, right?
Yeah.
And they couldn't, and then they lost power. They shut down power because the engine was on fire, so they didn't have food, and they didn't have bathrooms, and they were literally shitting in their own rooms.
They're shitting in bags and shit. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
It was like a nightmare cruise. So anyway, there's a bunch of people.
Tugboats tugged them back to the shore.
Yeah. So these people get off the tugboats, right? They get on a bus to go back to New Orleans. Bus breaks down.
Oh my god.
Talking about like kicking someone when they're down.
That's awesome, man.
They were only stuck for an hour, but Jesus Christ, after like how long were they? Like a week in the Gulf of Mexico, like shitting in bags, and then the bus breaks down, and they're like, "It'll be an hour, folks." And either you're like, "What's an hour compared to the 4 days of hell I just went through?" Or they're like, "A fucking hour. Get them here in 3 minutes tops." Like you're one or the other, but you're certainly not like, "Oh, that sucks. The bus broke down."
I'm definitely one of those people where I have a lot of tolerance for bad things that happen. But if I was on that bus and they said we don't know how long it's going to take, but we're getting a new bus, I would have got my shit, walked off, and started hitchhiking.
I would
be
have
like, I'm not sitting around anymore.
That's when you laughed. That's when I would have laughed. I would have been like, of course, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it break down? But you know what else that reminds me of? I love these movies, the Final Destination movies.
Uh-huh.
It's like everyone on that it's like, okay, you narrowed it. You know, in like the Final Destination movies, like one person kind of sparked the rest of the other people dying. Like they
Yeah,
fucked it up for
yeah.
everyone else. Right. So you could literally narrow it down now. It's one of the people on that bus.
Somebody on that bus is
It's
cursed.
cursed, and you're like, fuck. And then everyone in the bus is probably looking at each other like, who is it? Which one of you motherfuckers screwed with karma enough to break this bus down for another goddamn hour? I guess we'd know by whoever made it to New Orleans and didn't make it home. But we won't know that for a little while, will we?
It sounded like a horrible situation. Like I would have been flipping my shit because I hate boats. I don't like boats, and I understand that they're more like hotels. Ugh, I would have been freaking out. I would have been one of those hysterical
It's the
people.
boat that would have freaking not shitting and pissing in a bag and no food. They had no food.
Well, that might suck. I don't know. I think I could deal with it. I mean, just for a few days,
Once
you
you
know.
say, if you ever said to me, there's no food left, you know what I'd say to you? I'm hungry. Even if I wasn't hungry, if I just ate like the biggest meal in my life and they're like, we're out of food, that's like the last meal you're ever going to eat, I would look at you and say, I'm starving.
Well, that's a real dick move on your part.
Yeah, but it's just like if there's no food or nothing to drink or anything, or the bathrooms don't, like, you could literally piss and shit and then walk out and they'd be like, oh, you know what? You're the last person to use the bathroom. I'd be like, I gotta go again. It sucks. It'd ruin it for me.
And why are these people not like just shitting overboard into the ocean? Why would you shit in your room? What the fuck?
That's true.
I would never shit in my room. Like if I could,
Well, I think it was kind of a safety thing. Like they didn't have power, so there are no lights. So you kind of have to just keep everyone corralled to their rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But Kayla's, I can imagine them going, pissing on the port side, shitting on the starboard side.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be like, guys, escort me. I'm gonna go take a shit off the side of this boat right now.
And then they ran out of toilet paper.
I bet you there are books. I would use pages from a book.
So speaking of accidents, segue. Portland, Oregon. Or
Oregon.
Oregon, I guess. Depends on where you are in the country and how you say it. A mother who was 26, I believe, and her two young girls crash in a like a forest.
Okay.
And the 4-year-old Oregon girl drags her
Oregon.
dragged her seriously injured younger sister from the crashed car, and the two huddled under a blanket and waited. What did they wait for? Well, apparently two fishermen. The girls finally got help after two commercial fishermen spotted what appeared from a distance to be a basketball-sized gash in an alder tree along State Highway 401 between Astoria, Oregon, and Naysville, Washington, I guess. So these two fishermen are like, is that a basketball-sized gash in a tree? Let's go check that shit out. I don't know why that would compel anyone to check out a crash site.
Like them describing it, they don't understand why either. They passed it and they talked for like a minute and then they decided to turn around and go look at it.
Yeah, they're like, you know what? Let's do it. He said, McClure, I guess.
It's not like a bear scratched the tree. It's not like these trees are bears. You know, the animal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like bears will scratch trees, but they don't have bears in this forest. So there's no reason for that tree to be scarred like that. And if you look at the picture, it's like a dark green forest and the underside of the bark is bright orange.
You're right. It's not like a bear does it, but still, a basketball-sized anything in a tree wouldn't cause me to turn around a boat and check it out. But what would cause me to turn around is if they were either A, the person that made the car crash, and they just wanted to, oh yeah, and then we found them. Or B, what else is there to do in Astoria but hopefully find a crashed UFO site, which is what I think actually happened. They're probably like, this could be some government shit, and then they end up finding these like two girls under a blanket that could have died of hypothermia, and they're like, oh, it's just almost dead girls and their dead mother.
Well, no, it's obviously not a UFO, and they didn't cause the crash either. If you read the last paragraph of that.
The last paragraph says, Winger said investigators have yet to determine how fast Rath was driving or whether there was any other factors in the crash. The crime blotter in January 26th edition of the Longview Daily News indicates Rath was sentenced to 10 days in jail for heroin possession and third-degree theft. So it wasn't even her
Ooh.
car, and she was high.
Yeah, she probably fell asleep at the wheel because she was high.
Yeah.
So, but you know what's that's sad and great because now those kids can go get a real home.
Oh no, they have
Instead
a
of-
father. They have a father who refused to comment.
Oh, maybe he'll take care of them.
Yeah, maybe he's. The weird part is that she was 26, so I'm either this father. This father could be any age. You know what I mean? If they're
Mhm.
like mother of 42 dies, left in father's care, you're like, oh, the father must be like 42. But the fact that they're like mother 26 dies in crash from possible heroin, falling asleep at the wheel, father refuses to comment. You're like the father could be 15 or 40. You have no fucking idea how old the father is.
Right.
Okay, so our last story, which we all know about. Body found in LA hotel water tank, maybe missing Canadian tourist. Basically what happened is the residents of this place complained to the super that their water pressure sucked. So the super went to check it out and found a dead body. And basically what they were doing was drinking the water of this dead girl and shower.
Oh,
They were
no.
showering in it too, weren't they?
Yeah. So why does this tie every Strangecast episode we have together? I'll tell you why. 'Cause we talk about eating humans all the fucking time.
Oh, and they finally got to do it.
They finally got to drink one, so they're getting closer.
That's gross, though. We
It's
want to
fucking-
slow cook our people.
Yeah, I want like a good barbecue.
Yeah.
So it was the water pressure. It turns out it's probably a missing Canadian tourist who they had no business being. Well, apparently, according to her itinerary, there was no reason for her to be in LA. She was supposed to be in like Santa Cruz or something. And they identified her body.
Weird.
They identified her by the markings on her body, which they confirmed with her family, which I'm assuming is what, tattoos?
Yeah, or a birthmark.
But here's the interesting part. So they're talking to the authorities. And here's what the authority says. The question you're going to be asking yourself is how the fuck did she even get in there, right? And the authorities say, now what would you guys think is the reason that she was in there?
Somebody killed her and they hit her in there.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, obviously, right? I mean, that's the first thing people go to. Here's what the authority said. There are a lot of possibilities. She may have climbed into the tank not knowing what it was and fell in there, or there could be something suspicious about how she got in the tank. Well, let me tell you what. Let's narrow this down right now, and I'll tell you it's definitely something suspicious about how she got into a fucking tank on the top of a goddamn roof.
Well, did you read the part where they found her on security footage?
I did, and I don't really read the whole thing. So they found her.
Well, they saw her on security footage, and she's like running around, ducking into like elevators, and then coming back out and looking around as if somebody's following her, but they never see anybody come after her.
Ooh, that's weird.
Yeah,
It's
like so.
spooky.
Yeah, so like somebody might have been after her, but they never like they couldn't. It's not like somebody was behind her.
So Nicole, you want to talk? That's the news.
Yay, news!
I would love to have a Canadian martini. Tourist martini.
Oh, it's just like soapy water with like chunks of fat floating through it.
And it would apologize that it's not that great.
And tastes like maple syrup.
Yeah, so it'd actually be pretty good. But that's the news, and now we're going to talk about gays divorcing.
Gotta fight for our right to divorce now. Damn. I have a strange and true story for you all. If we have marriage equality, does that mean we have divorce equality? In most states, no. The simple fact is if you get gay married in New York and move to any of the 41 states that don't recognize your marriage, you cannot get a divorce. You are truly wedlocked. To make matters worse, the Defense of Marriage Act, which is a federally mandated law to uphold the traditional marriages, gives divorce lawyers a legal obstacle course to navigate, effectively creating a higher so-called gay divorce tax. Susan Summer, director of constitutional litigation for Lamba Legal gave New York Magazine's Jessie Green an anxiety-ridden tale of the gay marriage train. She says, imagine you're a same-sex couple married in Washington, D.C., and take the Amtrak there to Boston. You're married in D.C., everything's fine. Next stop, Maryland, which until 2010 wouldn't treat you as married, but now would. Delaware treats you as a civil union couple, then Pennsylvania, which has not been recognizing these out-of-state marriages as anything at all, and not allowing divorces. So while there, you are potentially a legal stranger to your spouse. New Jersey recognizes your marriages only as a civil union. Then, you're back in New York, and you're married again. Same in Connecticut. Then you get to Rhode Island, a civil union state where the Attorney General has said you are married, and the government is treating you as married, but the courts have said they won't divorce you. Finally, you reach Massachusetts, and you can breathe a sigh of relief. You're married, and you can divorce, but it's a very complicated legal ride. So the incoming gay divorce boom is likely to see similar divorce rates as those of straight couples, if not even higher. Because as Americans are slowly starting to accept, gay people are regular people. They fall in love, they make promises to each other, which they promptly break within 5 to 10 years of starting a committed relationship. In Green's feature of the peculiar mechanics of gay divorce, Kevin and Sam were cheermeisters of equality wherever they could find it. And after finally getting married legally, they felt the next step was adopting children. They created a 14-page promotional book for birth parents and soon discovered that they were going to be different parents and could no longer compromise with each other. So after their 7th anniversary, the couple separated. Sam and Kevin aren't alone in gay divorce. While gay marriages may be short now, the typical gay relationship follows typical straight relationships in scope and time. Katie and Desiree and 23 other couples got married on July 30th, 2011, the first date New York allowed gay marriages to take place. They had been dating since 2008. As they are among the first to get married, they are also the first to be divorced less than a year after their wedding. Desiree told Jen Dahl of The Atlantic, I feel like I'm the president of the loneliest club in the world. As of August 2010, all 50 states are under a no-fault divorce system, for heteros, mind you. Prior to this divorce revolution, it was necessary to show a fault, so divorces were always a type of fight, a legal fight, whether or not it was amicable between the two parties or not. But in the 1980s, the U.S. saw divorce rates peak at 50%. And as far as nuances go, 70% of divorces that included child custody were filed by the wife. Now, states that allow for easier joint custody, disregarding gender bias towards the mother, see a lower divorce rate overall. So, despite some states allowing for gay marriages and divorce, the country and culture of the U.S. are still treating same-sex couples as separate but equal. Strangely, people are treated as commodities in the legal system, and same-sex marriages as a novelty. That novelty is being taken advantage of by lawyers who steer these couples through the legal hoops in order to dissolve their marriages. And our government doesn't seem too keen on protecting these people from this ripoff. Socially, the LGBT community is lacking in its spirited foresight, and new divorces are left floundering without support groups. Okay, what do you guys think of that?
I kind of find the whole thing sort of funny. And I hate to say that, but I just think that it's really funny that there's this big push for gay marriage and just gay and lesbian couples, and we are in love and we want to get married, and they're like, fine, you can get married, and then like, so I mean, relatively soon after they say okay, they're like, oh, we want a divorce, and it's like, oh, I just think
it's comical. It's not like funny. Like, why did you? I can see that. I can see the irony in it, and I can appreciate the irony in it as well. But I mean, you know, that's their rights. They
no, yeah,
you know,
no. I'm not.
Right. I know you're not. I know you're not.
I just think there's comedy somewhere buried in there that I just can't pull out. But I just there's something that makes me like they're like, okay, we want a divorce now, and then like the straight people that like don't want gays to get married in the first place are like, no, fuck you, you can't get divorced. It's just there's some weird like comedy
They want to have
element.
that over them. They want to have that last bit over them, and it just goes to the edge there.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
It's interesting because I think in this whole grand civil rights push to legalize gay marriage, that everyone's just so positive and focused and together. They're so on top of it. Everyone's just pushing forward as one force, and no one's considering the possibility of like, oh, hey, what happens if I don't want to be with this person anymore? That's not something you want to say to your partner, where you're both, every day you wake up and there's like a gazillion things you have to do to help push this legislation forward.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing.
That's not the thing you want to talk about. You can't even, it doesn't even enter into your brain, I guess.
Or it does, because there's so many more. There's bigger fish to fry, so that like, let's be able to get married before we start talking about divorcing. Because if we start talking about divorcing now, they're never gonna say yes. You know?
Right. That's a good point. I wonder if that's the subconscious, unspoken, or maybe even spoken behind closed doors idea behind of what's happening here.
Yeah, like a strong gay couple that is like, let's get married, let's go to all the rallies, and they do, and then like they realize they don't really want to get married anymore, but they don't want to look like idiots, you know?
Right.
It's a little bit of saving face is what I'm saying, you know. But
Yeah, so
asshole. Wow. So that's our show. Hope you really enjoyed it. You could always follow us on anything, Twitter, G chat mail, whatever. You can put a G in front of it, and we're involved in it. And of course, YouTube / the Strangecast. And you don't have to subscribe, but please listen in. Thanks for listening.
Have a good night.
au revoir.
Maybe you're just young.
Yeah, I think you're just young.
I'm at a pretty good age. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 24, but I'm halfway there. I'll be where you're at pretty soon.
Speaking of things that you say in Texas, do you know the other day someone at work was talking about a relatively large woman and sleeping with her, and I was like, oh, you wouldn't kick her out of bed for eating crackers, right? And he's like, what? I'm like, I don't know.
No, that's hilarious, dude.
Yeah, and I said it so like once I said it, I was like, did I just say that? 'Cause I said it like I knew what I was talking about. Like I wasn't like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to use that quote.
And see, to me, that doesn't sound like a Texas thing. Like that sounds like a Boston guy kind of thing. Like, hey, I wouldn't kick out of bed for eating crackers. Like that kind of,
Yeah.
There's another Texas one, Rinkadink. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, we had an episode on Rinky Dink.
We talked about Rinkadink. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in season 1 though. No one listened to season 1.
I don't think there was any others. I mean, there's probably that we say y'all, howdy.
I say y'all though.
You say y'all?
Yeah, it's easier to say.
Yeah. Hey y'all.
But okay, you guys want to get to the news?
Yes.
10. I have 10 stories.
Oh, by the way, I heard the news. A segue? I hadn't heard it yet. I wanted to say that was pretty good.
Segue. And you were like,
Segue.
And you were like, Segue. All right.
I was probably drinking.
And now it's time for the news. And that's our news intro. This first story comes from Grand Forks, North Dakota. North Dakota has suspended men's basketball play-by-play radio announcer Paul Ralston for 2 games after he used the phrase choke job following an overtime loss in northern Arizona. So basically this... Welcome to the Strangecast, podcast made by strangers for strangers. I'm Ryan.
I'm Kalis.
I'm Nicole.
We're the motherfucking Strangecast.
Motherfuckers.
And that was our intro.
This real piece of shit. We were having a contest and nobody entered, so fuck it.
Yeah, it's true. And I even cut it back down to we have the 45-second version and we have like the 3-second version. And we don't even use the 45-second version anymore. But that's all right.
You know what? Fuck everybody that's a musician listening to our podcast and not remixing this thing already.
You selfish, talented assholes.
Yeah. How can you be so selfish? Ideas belong to everyone. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about news, and then Nicole's going to talk about...
Okay.
I gotta say it, right?
News.
Strange news.
No,
news. We're going to go through a bunch of shit, and we're going to end it on a story that I think is so the Strangecast, and it ties a lot of episodes together, kind of like the rug in The Big Lebowski. Kalis is he has a humidifier in his room. We'll have to we'll get rid.
Because of my asthma.
But first things first. What's going on with you guys? Kalis, I heard you guys got a little bit of a storm. Oh.
Yeah, it was nothing. Seriously. No snow on the ground, nothing. I don't know if you guys have... I was not aware that it's like a mini controversy about Michelle Obama being on the Oscars or something. I didn't watch the Oscars, but there were people debating about this on my Facebook feed, and it went on for quite a while. It got into quite a discussion.
What are some of the highlights? I'm just curious about what the whole debacle could be about Michelle Obama. Choked, but you can't say they had a choke job. It's just
one of a very, very similar thing. One night I was watching Monday Night Football this past season, and I think it was kind of rainy, and so every punt was what they kept saying, muffed. And it was like every punt, they're like, oh yeah, that punt was muffed. And I'm like, what is this, muff night football? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
why do they
awesome.
keep, like, I didn't even know that muff was a verb. Like, all I think of is something sexual. And I think they were loving the fact that it was so sexual sounding, so they just kept using it. They're like, oh, another muff punt. I'm like, huh, really? Like, every single punt, they're like, oh, that one was muffed too.
Well, speaking of muffing things, segue.
Way.
Recently, there was in Germany, a meteor hit Earth. Well, it didn't hit Earth because then it'd be a meteorite. But you guys all saw the videos of the meteor in Germany?
I saw the one in Russia.
You're right. It was a Russian meteor, but this is a German story.
Okay. Gotcha.
So in Russia, now, Kalis, have you seen these?
I've seen just a few of the videos.
Okay, so in Russia, there's like a huge problem with insurance fraud and getting hit by cars and collecting insurance. So in Russia, everyone has a dash cam in their car.
Oh yeah.
So when this meteor hit, it was like everyone had a camera to record this thing.
Incidentally recorded, sure.
Right. The problem is that they're in cars, and cars, if you're in your car, it's typically not just silent, you're listening to music. Well, Germany has like these really, really strict music laws, and Germany did not see any of these videos because of the music playing in the background of most of the Russian dash cams.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
I'm surprised their laws are so strict. I thought European laws on things like that were pretty lax.
Well, we have I guess in America we have a Fair Use Provision Act, and I don't know really what it entails. By the way, she's really attractive. I never noticed.
She is probably the most attractive first lady we've ever had, hands down.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could top her.
Her and Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe is not a first lady.
She's kind of the first mistress.
If we're gonna name all the women that presidents have been inside of, I mean, I don't know that Michelle Obama would be that high up there, but anyway, but no, like what a lot of people were saying was that I guess the most common theme in the argument against him was how liberal Hollywood and liberal Washington are kind of rubbing elbows, or that was the term used, and I kind of disagreed. I mean, I made the point to say that Ronald Reagan and Arnold Schwarzenegger were two Republican politicians that had both originally been actors. And then, of course, Clint Eastwood spoke at the RNC last year. There definitely are not that many conservative people in Hollywood, but if liberal Washington is that close to liberal Hollywood, then conservative Washington's in bed
Just as
with
close.
fucking. Well, I would say that they're in bed with more like corporate America.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
that's a good 2 cents.
That was my thought about it. That's what I contributed to it. But you know, they got kind of a lot of people were getting really carried away with their defending their side and whatnot. So it kind of got out of hand pretty quick. But
You know, on a related note, I love Facebook's new feature to unsubscribe from a thread.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Unfollow posts.
Unfollow post. It's like my number one go-to thing I click on Facebook now.
I wish I didn't use Facebook that much. I missed when I didn't have one.
You're in it.
I got to get out again. I'm thinking about deleting it.
I'm deleting it when I'm 30.
How old are you?
29.
Sorry that I need to ask that.
29 and a half, actually, but
Wow, you're getting close.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do it. I think you'll keep it.
I'm 29 in 6 weeks.
ooh.
You guys are old.
This guy, there was a game was really close. They ended up losing, and I guess he said it more than once now. He keeps calling it a choke job. And like, you gotta stop saying that.
Weird.
Yeah, especially like I guess you could take it sexually,
How
but
much for a choke job?
no, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Nicole, have you ever heard of the guy on like, I think it's CNN or maybe it's Fox, and he's like, who sings Jenny from the Block?
I don't know.
J-Lo. It's gotta be Jennifer Lopez.
Lopez?
Yeah. And he's like, they're the community, because she's like, I'm just Jenny from the Block, and so
Yeah.
her block is like outraged, and he's like, more likely to give her a curb job than a blow job, than a block party.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he's like, then a block party. I'm sorry about that, but it'll never happen again.
Oh my god.
But this guy's saying choke job.
Wow.
Would a choke job you want to define what that is? Because I think it would be when you're getting head but you're choking the girl at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like deep throating.
Oh, I was thinking like a choke job, like where you've got a really tight grip.
Ah.
That's what I thought of. Like, you don't just want a blowjob, you want a choke job. I got it.
So it's a blowjob with a tight grip.
Yeah.
That's a choke job. Okay, so it's sexual for both of you guys, but we all know the way he's trying to use it, right?
I would assume.
You know when someone chokes in a game?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's...
Okay, so that's a.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't. Yeah.
You guys didn't get that?
No.
No, I honestly didn't know what he was trying to say. I'm like, okay. Like, I get that he didn't mean it sexually, but like, what the fuck was he thinking?
No, like in 2004, the Yankees choked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of an old-fashioned thing. Nobody really says that anymore.
I think it's said all the time, more often than you think, but I don't think it's ever called a choke job, and that's where I think the controversy starts, where you're like, you can't say it. You could say they